What's alive to say? This work is whatever we mean by spiritual. Ostensibly, it seems psychological, but I don't even know how to distinguish now between the psychological and the spiritual. I think in many ways, like the psychological has to do with our mind, how our mind creates reality, and the spiritual has to do with reality itself. And how whatever lineage you come from, I think you could boil it down to that. It's like coming to terms with the mind that our world is creating, and the world as it is, reality as it is, which is however complex that might be, way more complex than I can understand. Then the mind generates frameworks and stories about reality is. And if you think there's some kind of source or intelligence behind that, then you're kind of theologically oriented. The spiritual journey is the journey from being able to distinguish the mind that our world is creating from reality as it is, and allowing reality as it is to be. And one step further than that is the realization that we are that reality, capital R, in this particular form, experiencing the world in this kind of enclosed, incarnate form of Bruce, Nancy, or Jill, or Susanna, so that we increasingly begin to identify with life, capital R, reality, or life, capital S, or reality, capital R. And we realize that we are that mystery, that we have been seeking to make contact with. And the reason that we're seeking to make contact with that is because our minds have created a world of separation and alienation. So we start to feel alone and separated and alienated, and we suffer because the mind that was created by the treatment that we received, where we didn't quite understand why there wasn't sufficient love and why we weren't seen and why somebody couldn't be with us and make contact with us, then generated this sense of separation between us and the world. And ever since then, we started the search for meaning, the search for purpose, the search for self, as if the self, meaning, and purpose had gone into hiding. But so that mind that was created by those early experiences, from this place of separation, begins to feel like there's got to be more. There's got to be a home that is not this. And so that spiritual search is, what some of us in one form or another kind of make as the central project of our life. And it's the project, I think, of overcoming alienation and the eventually the realization that we're not separate from that which we've been seeking. We are that, and that the consciousness, the mind of the ego doesn't know that, but our consciousness that is localized as us knows that. And so, and specifically, one of the things that, one of the forms that separate mind takes is of, just call it the people pleaser. But that's just one frame. But I think that's what's going on with the people pleaser when we realize that from this belief system that we're separate from, unworthy, undignified, illegitimate, unlovable, shameful, then we have to find a way to compensate for that, and necessarily. And so we do the best we can. Call it the false self, the survivor self, the trying self, the separate self, whatever. And then there's a for many of us, for some of us it's like boom and we're awake. For others of us, it's like a journey to understand the setup, to understand the construction of the mind and why we had to do that. And so, I just think that that's what this kind of mentorship is ultimately about. It's like being able to distinguish between the mind of that egoic construction, which over time you either learn to identify with and cling to and act out the drama of, or over time you catch on and you go, oh, okay. And then you fall back in love with that being that came into the world and underwent such suffering and tried to do the best we could, and then then there's this homecoming to a true identity, to the truth of who we are, which is lovable and worthy and legitimate and radiant and beautiful, and here to give, receive love, and all of that stuff. And that's what, for me these days, constitutes the spiritual journey. It's not like transcending all that psychological setup. It's rather going deeper and deeper into it, to the point that you understand it, and then you render it obsolete. You render the world that the ego created obsolete through self-compassion. You understand it, and then eventually get to a place where it doesn't have the same hold on you, and you're able to orient from what I call in this mentorship the heart, which has these qualities of lightheartedness in the present. It's in a state of surrender. It lets things be as they are. It's orients from a place of compassion. It from this place of heart, it understands that it's at least co-creating the reality that we're experiencing, and assumes deep responsibility for that experience. It's shifted out of victimhood into a kind of this sense of, I have the opportunity here to participate in the creation of the reality that I'm experiencing. And so there's no need to drop back into the victimhood narrative. Once you've sufficiently undergone the suffering and see it for what it is, and then, so this is the journey. Simply put, coming back full circle here, being able to distinguish between the mind of the egoic construction and the reality it's creating from the mind of the heart, if you like. And this increasingly stabilized sense that I am that, having this localized experience. So really, this is a spiritual journey. I just don't talk about it as such. I talk about it as people pleasing, but you stick with it long enough, and I think actually what we're doing here.